When my daughter called out "Mom" at the school talent show, I froze. Not in pride, not in excitement, but in confusion. I hadn't heard her say that word in years, not to me, anyway. It was a sunny Thursday morning when it happened. The kind of early spring day that smells faintly of wet grass and freshly baked bread drifting from the cafe across the street. I had arrived at the school gym, clutching my latte like an anchor to normalcy, my heart still tight from the usual workweek stress. My daughter, Lily, was 12 now, bright, funny, with a mischievous glint that reminded me of her father in the tiniest ways. And yet, as she bounded across the stage with her classmates, her voice carried a word that pierced me to the bone. "Mom," she shouted, laughing, pointing toward the audience. I blinked, the coffee sloshing slightly in its cup. My mind raced. Surely, I had misheard? But the sound lingered, vibrating in my chest in a way that made every muscle tense. I looked around. Other parents were smiling, clapping, taking pictures. I scanned the crowd, expecting to see someone. A woman, standing nearby, beaming. But there was no one. Only me. I felt a prickle of panic. My ex-husband? Could he be here? But no, he didn't come to school events. He rarely even called. I shook my head, tried to steady my breathing, and forced a smile when Lily ran off stage. "Good job, sweetie," I said, crouching to her level, brushing a strand of her chestnut hair behind her ear. "Thanks, Mom," she chirped. She didn't notice my momentary falter. She never did. She was all innocence and cheer, like the world around her was stitched together perfectly, oblivious to the cracks I was suddenly noticing. The rest of the day passed in a haze. I couldn't shake that word. Mom. She hadn't said it in years. She'd called me Mom every day, every hour, since birth. But that tone, that joy-filled announcement at school, it was different. There was warmth there, yes, but it was shared. With someone else. I tried to shrug it off as imagination, a trick of my frazzled mind. Maybe she was just repeating lines from a school play. But that evening, while folding laundry in the kitchen, the small warmth of the stovetop heating the air, the faint smell of chicken soup lingering, I overheard her talking to herself in her bedroom. "And then Mom said we could go to the park tomorrow." My hands froze mid-fold. My fingers pressed into the rough cotton of her socks. My pulse hammered in my ears. "Mom?" I whispered into the empty kitchen, but the sound of the ticking clock was my only reply. I knocked softly on her bedroom door. "Lily? Who's Mom?" She peeked out, her eyes wide, cheeks flushed from brushing her hair. "Just, Mom from school," she said casually. "The one who helps with reading club." I forced a laugh, though it sounded hollow even to me. "Oh, okay, honey." That night, I lay awake in the quiet hum of the apartment. The faint whir of the refrigerator, the soft creak of the radiator, the distant barking of a dog somewhere down the street, these familiar sounds felt suddenly alien. I couldn't stop replaying her words. Mom. Life with Lily had always been a balancing act. After my divorce from her father, Daniel, I'd rebuilt our small world with quiet determination. Our mornings were rushed but comfortable, scrambled eggs, toast with melted butter, the smell of coffee that seeped into everything. I'd kiss her cheek and tuck her hair behind her ear, just as I did now, every day, trying to make our little apartment feel like a home. Evenings were spent on homework, board games, sometimes soft music drifting from the living room as we cooked together. Daniel had been present early on, or so I thought. He came around when it was convenient, sometimes leaving small gifts, sometimes disappearing for weeks. I didn't care anymore. I had my routines, my life, and Lily. That was enough. Or so I told myself. But the incident at the talent show gnawed at me over the next few days. I noticed small things, subtle differences in her behavior. She seemed distracted sometimes, whispering into her tablet. Occasionally, she'd ask questions about her other mom, questions that made my stomach drop like bricks. Why can't she come to my school play? Will she pick me up on Friday? Did you know she makes pancakes just like you? I tried to answer calmly, smiling, brushing it off as innocent curiosity. Sweetie, you know only one mom lives here with you, I said gently, tucking her hair behind her ear again. But even as the words left my mouth, I could feel the lie twisting in my chest. My heart tightened every time she mentioned it. Finally, the unease became unbearable. I called Daniel. He answered on the first ring, casual and cheerful as if nothing in the world could rattle him. Hey, hon, he said. How are you guys? Fine, I said, voice tight. Actually, I need to ask you something. I paused, taking a deep breath. Lily, she keeps talking about a mom. Someone you never told me about? There was a pause on his end, a subtle shift in his tone, like the temperature dropping in a room you thought was warm. Oh, that. Yeah. That. My jaw tightened. Daniel. What's going on? I didn't think it was important, he mumbled. She's from after us. After us? I could barely understand him. Daniel, I said, voice rising despite my attempt at calm. Explain. Now. He swallowed audibly. I remarried, after we split. Lily, she has a half-sibling. And, the woman I married, well, she's been around. But I didn't think you needed to know. It was complicated. My hands were shaking. I could feel the counter under my fingers trembling as I gripped it. The air felt heavy, too thick to breathe. Complicated? I repeated. You never mentioned any of this. You never said a word about her, or a new child? Lily has been calling someone mom, and I didn't even know, Daniel, she's 12. I know, he said softly. I know. I should have told you. I thought it would confuse her. I didn't want to disrupt your bond. I thought I was protecting everyone. Protecting? My mind was spinning. Shock, betrayal, disbelief, anger, it all collided at once. I felt like I'd been pushed off a cliff, dangling in the wind with nothing to hold on to. I don't know what to say, I whispered, more to myself than to him. I don't know how to. I don't even know how to fix this. I'll tell you everything, he said, his voice hesitant, almost guilty. Come over tomorrow. We need to talk, truly talk. No hiding. I hung up, staring at the phone as if it had suddenly become an alien object. The smell of the coffee I had left on the counter was suddenly bitter. The apartment felt smaller, suffocating. Lily's laughter drifted from her room, innocent and unaware, and I felt a pang so deep it made my chest ache. I sank onto the couch, burying my face in my hands. The life I had carefully constructed, the trust one thought I'd rebuilt after our divorce, felt like sand slipping through my fingers. And I realized, with a chilling clarity, that nothing would ever be the same again. The next morning, I watched her brush her hair, humming softly. She smiled at me, unaware of the storm gathering just beyond the walls of our home. I wanted to hold her, to shield her from what was coming. But I also knew I couldn't run from the truth anymore. Not from Daniel, not from her, not from the secret life that had been kept from me for years. I took a deep breath. I was about to step into a world I had never known existed, a world where my daughter had another mother, and I had to fight to understand, to protect, and maybe even, to forgive. The next day, I stood outside Daniel's house for the first time in years. It hadn't changed much, the same maple tree bending slightly toward the driveway, the same chipped paint near the porch light, the faint hum of wind chimes that used to lull me to sleep back when this was our home. But something else was there now, an unfamiliar car in the driveway. A soft pink bicycle leaned against the porch railing, small enough for a child half Lily's age. My heart clenched. Lily walked beside me, holding my hand, her small fingers swinging in rhythm with mine. She was excited, her energy practically bubbling. Mom, can we go in now? She asked, catching herself. That slip, Mom, landed like a cold drop of rain on my skin. Yes, I said softly, forcing a smile. Let's go. Daniel opened the door before we could knock. His expression was cautious, a blend of guilt and awkward warmth. Hey, he said quietly, eyes flicking between me and Lily. Hi, Dad. Lily squealed, running into his arms. I stood at the doorway, my arms crossed tightly, the faint scent of coffee and cinnamon drifting out from inside. I could hear soft laughter echoing from another room, a woman's voice, low and melodic. Come in, Daniel said, stepping aside. The house was spotless. Too spotless. There were family pictures lining the hallway, frames gleaming in the afternoon light. At first, I didn't look too closely, until I saw one that made my breath hitch. It was Daniel, smiling, holding a little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Standing beside them was a woman I didn't recognize. She had long auburn hair, soft brown eyes, and a quiet confidence about her. Her arm was draped casually around Daniel's shoulders, her smile easy, natural, like she'd been part of his life forever. I froze. Daniel noticed my gaze and cleared his throat. That's Claire, he said. My wife. Wife. The word sliced through me like a dull blade, slow, painful. Before I could respond, I heard footsteps. A small girl peeked out from the living room, clutching a stuffed bear. Her eyes were wide, curious. Hi, she said shyly. Hi, I managed, forcing a smile. Is that Lily's mom? She asked Daniel. He nodded awkwardly. Yes, sweetheart. The girl grinned, stepping closer. Hi. I'm Emma. Lily ran up to her. Emma, this is my mom. The other one, she said proudly, and the words twisted my stomach into knots. The other one. Claire emerged then, wiping her hands on a dish towel, her face calm and open. You must be Anna, she said softly. It's nice to finally meet you. Finally. I studied her, polite, composed, the kind of woman who made you feel small without even trying. She extended her hand, and after a hesitant pause, I took it. Her grip was warm, steady. Coffee? She asked. No, thank you, I said curtly, though my throat felt dry. We sat at the dining table. The kids ran off to play, laughter echoing down the hallway. For a moment, the sound almost soothed me, until I noticed the little details. A second backpack with Lily's name embroidered next to Emma's on a shared hook. A pair of pink sneakers that looked identical to Lily's but slightly smaller. A crayon drawing on the fridge, 2 stick-figure moms holding hands with 2 kids between them. I stared at it, my chest tightening. So, I said finally, my voice calm but trembling slightly. How long? Daniel shifted uncomfortably. 5 years. 5, I stopped, gripping the edge of the table. 5 years? You remarried 5 years ago and never told me? Claire glanced at Daniel, then back at me, choosing her words carefully. It wasn't meant to be a secret. But Lily was so young. We didn't want to confuse her. She'd come over, she and Emma bonded, it just happened naturally. My mind reeled. Naturally? I echoed. You let her call you mom without telling me? Claire's voice softened. She started it on her own. I never asked her to. I looked at her, really looked. There was sincerity in her eyes, maybe even kindness. But it didn't matter. The damage was done. I turned to Daniel. You hid a whole life from me. From her. He rubbed the back of his neck. I didn't want to complicate things. You and we weren't on good terms then. I thought if Lily had more stability. Stability? I cut in. You call deception stability? Claire placed a hand gently on his arm. Daniel, maybe. I stood abruptly. No. I've heard enough. The chair screeched across the floor. The kids appeared at the doorway, their smiles fading as they sensed the tension. Mom? Lily asked, eyes wide. It's okay, sweetheart, I said, forcing calm into my voice. We're going home. Daniel reached out, his tone pleading. Anna, please. Don't do this in front of her. But I was already walking toward the door, my daughter's small hand slipping into mine. I didn't look back, not at him, not at her, not at the woman who had quietly taken my place in half my daughter's world. That night, Lily was quiet. She sat at the dinner table, pushing food around her plate, her brow furrowed. Mom, she said softly, you're mad at Dad, aren't you? I took a slow breath. I'm disappointed, honey. That's all. She nodded, her small hands fidgeting. I didn't mean to make you sad. I thought you already knew. Claire, she's nice. She helps me with homework. Sometimes she tells stories about when she was little, and we bake cookies. I thought you'd like her. The innocence in her voice nearly broke me. I reached across the table and took her hand. Sweetheart, I said quietly, you don't ever have to feel sorry for loving people. That's not your fault. Okay? Her eyes filled with tears. But I don't want to make you and Dad fight. I squeezed her hand gently. You didn't. Adults make their own messes. You just try to stay your happy self. She smiled weakly, then got up to put her dish in the sink. As she walked away, I felt a hollow ache, a sadness too deep to name. When she went to bed, I sat alone in the living room, staring at the framed photo of us on her birthday, just the two of us, before I knew about Claire. Before I realized my daughter's world was split between two mothers who hadn't even met until today. And in that stillness, I made myself a quiet promise. I would find out everything. Every hidden truth. Every lie that had shaped this secret life around my child. Because if Daniel thought he could decide what was best for Lily without me, he was about to learn how wrong he was. It started with a school newsletter. Just a folded piece of paper in Lily's backpack, crumpled between math homework and cookie crumbs. But it was what I found printed on the back that made my chest tighten. Parent Volunteer Appreciation Day, featuring Mrs. Claire Weston, Reading Club Coordinator. Weston. Daniel's last name. I stared at it for a long moment, the black ink blurring slightly as anger and disbelief surged in waves. My hands trembled. The name looked wrong there, her name, beside his. The name that had once been mine. Lily skipped into the kitchen, humming softly, her backpack swinging. Hey, sweetie, I said carefully, holding up the paper. This is the lady who helps at your school, right? She nodded, smiling. Yeah. Claire. She reads stories to us. Everyone loves her. She's really nice, Mom. You'd like her. Her tone was innocent, that same unshakable brightness that children have when they don't realize they're stepping through landmines. I forced a smile, but something inside me was already breaking apart. I had never felt so excluded from my own child's life. That night, when Lily went to bed, I sat at the kitchen table with my laptop open, staring at Daniel's social media page. He had always been private, but there were breadcrumbs, tagged photos, old posts. A life that had continued quietly, fully, while I was piecing mine back together from scratch. There they were, Daniel, Claire, little Emma, and my Lily, smiling at a Christmas tree lighting, faces glowing in soft golden light. Another at the beach, sand between their toes. Lily, my daughter, her arms around both of them. The caption read, "Family means everything." Something inside me shattered. Family. He had taken my word, my most sacred identity, and shared it with another woman, another child, another home, and all without telling me. I closed the laptop and sat in silence. The refrigerator hummed softly, and the only other sound was my heartbeat, steady, but heavy. The next day, I couldn't focus at work. I sat through meetings, nodded at my colleagues, and typed meaningless sentences into emails I couldn't bring myself to send. By noon, I had made a decision. I drove back to Daniel's house. I didn't call first. I didn't even knock this time. I stood on the porch, heart pounding, until Claire opened the door. "Anna," she said, startled. "Is everything all right?" I stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I need to talk to Daniel." She hesitated. "He's not here right now." "But I can." "No," I said firmly. "This is between him and me." Her expression softened slightly. "I understand. But you should know, Daniel never meant to hurt you." I laughed under my breath, a dry, humorless sound. "You don't get to say that to me." She nodded slowly. "Fair." We stood in the silence of her kitchen, the same kitchen I used to stand in when I lived here. Only now, everything was new. Bright. Organized. Her touch was everywhere, a vase of sunflowers, neatly arranged jars, children's drawings pinned to the fridge. A perfect little world. "Can I ask you something?" I said, my voice quieter now. "Of course." "When she calls you Mom, what does that feel like?" She looked at me then, really looked at me, her expression a mixture of guilt and understanding. "It feels wrong sometimes," she admitted softly. "Because I know she already has one." I swallowed hard, my throat burning. "But it also feels natural," she continued hesitantly. "I love her, Anna. Not as a replacement. Just as someone who's here, day to day. Someone who cares." For a long moment, I couldn't speak. There was nothing to say that would make it less complicated. Less painful. And then Daniel's car pulled into the driveway. He walked in, surprised to see me standing there, his face tightening instantly. "Anna. What's going on?" "You tell me," I said, holding his gaze. "Why did I have to find out about your family through a school newsletter?" He sighed, rubbing his forehead. "Anna, please. No. Don't Anna me. You've been living a lie. You let our daughter live in two worlds without ever giving me the truth." "She's happy," he said quickly, like it was some kind of defense. "Is she?" I snapped. "Or are you happy? Because you get to play perfect family while I look like the outsider in my own child's life." Claire stepped forward. "Daniel, maybe." "No, Claire," I interrupted sharply. "You've said enough. This isn't about you." My voice was trembling now, but I didn't care. "You could have told me. Either of you. Instead, you let her grow up confused. You let her believe she had to hide this from me." Daniel exhaled, defeated. "I thought I was protecting her from more conflict." "By lying?" I said. "By letting her believe that secrecy is safer than truth?" He looked down, silent. The air between us felt like glass, fragile, ready to break. "I would have understood," I whispered finally. "If you'd just told me. I would have found a way to make it work for her. But now," I shook my head. "Now I don't even know who she trusts." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Claire said softly, "She trusts you, Anna. She talks about you every day. The way you read to her at night, the way you make her laugh. She adores you." Her words should have comforted me. But instead, they pierced deeper, because they reminded me of everything I stood to lose if this continued unchecked. I turned toward the door. "I need some air." Outside, the wind had picked up. Leaves rustled along the pavement, brushing against my feet. I sat on the steps, staring at the street. The sky was turning a muted orange, fading into gray. I thought about Lily, her innocence, her trust, her laughter echoing through both our homes. And I thought about how easily adults could break what children believe to be whole. Daniel came out quietly, sitting beside me. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he said softly, "I made mistakes, Anna. I know that. I should have told you years ago. But when I remarried, I was ashamed. Of how I handled our divorce. Of how much I hurt you." I stared ahead, silent. He continued, "I didn't want to drag you back into my mess. And then one day, Lily called Claire mom and I froze. I knew it was wrong, but she looked so happy. I didn't know how to stop it. You could have started by telling me, I said. My voice cracked slightly. You owed me that. He nodded, eyes fixed on the ground. You're right. For a moment, he looked smaller than I remembered, not the confident man who used to fill every room, but someone weighed down by guilt. I don't hate her, I said finally. Claire. She seems kind. But you, Daniel, you broke something in me today. You made me feel like a stranger to my own child. He didn't respond. Just sat there, quiet, letting the wind fill the spaces between us. And in that silence, I realized something painful but clear: this wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. A slow, quiet rewriting of my place in Lily's life, happening right under my nose. I stood up. This isn't over. I'll do what's best for Lily. Even if it means fighting you for it. His eyes flickered up to mine, startled, but not angry. Anna. I'm not doing this to hurt you, I said, my voice steady now. I'm doing it because she deserves honesty. She deserves one world, not two broken ones stitched together by secrets. I turned, walking toward my car as the wind carried the scent of wet earth and fading daylight. Behind me, Daniel's voice was low, almost pleading. Anna, please don't take her away from me. I didn't answer. Because in that moment, I wasn't sure who had taken whom away first. That night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling as the shadows from the streetlights moved across the room. My mind replayed everything: the photographs, the lies, the way Daniel had said I was protecting her. Protecting her from what? From knowing that her father could lie? From knowing that her mother had been left out of her childhood? By dawn, I made a quiet vow to myself: no more wondering. No more being kept in the dark. The first step was simple: clarity. I called my lawyer. Anna, she said after hearing my story, you've always had full custody, but if there's been undisclosed cohabitation or confusion about guardianship, you have every right to request modification. I don't want to take Lily away from him, I said quickly. I just need boundaries. Truth. My lawyer's voice softened. Then we'll document what's been happening. You're not asking for punishment, Anna, you're asking for honesty. After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, the morning light spilling across the kitchen table. There was a calm that came with having a plan, not revenge, but direction. Still, beneath that calm, grief lingered, heavy, quiet. That afternoon, Lily came home from school with a handmade bracelet, pink beads strung on elastic thread. Look, Mom, she said proudly. Claire helped me make it. I smiled, though my throat tightened. It's beautiful, sweetheart. She slipped it onto my wrist. Now we match. Claire has one too. I stared at the twin beads glinting in the light. For a moment, I wanted to tear it off, to reject the symbol of a shared motherhood I hadn't agreed to. But instead, I took a deep breath. Because Lily didn't understand the politics of adults. To her, love wasn't divided, it multiplied. That night, while brushing her hair, I asked gently, sweetheart, when you're at Dad's, do you feel happy? She nodded, her eyes meeting mine in the mirror. Yeah. But I'm happy here too. I love both houses. Do you ever feel like you have to choose? Her brow furrowed. No. Should I? I smiled faintly. No, baby. Never. She turned, studying my face. You're not mad at Claire, right? I hesitated, choosing my words carefully. No, I'm not mad. I'm just figuring things out. She seemed satisfied with that. Okay, she whispered, then leaned forward and hugged me. I'm glad I have two moms who love me. Her words cut deep, but also softened something inside me. Because even in her confusion, there was purity. Maybe she didn't need me to erase Claire. Maybe she needed me to stay, strong, constant, truthful. Over the next few days, I started documenting small details, texts, visitation inconsistencies, the blurred lines between two households. It wasn't about control, it was about clarity. But emotionally, I was unraveling. There were moments when I'd walk into Lily's empty room while she was with her father and just sit there. The faint smell of her strawberry shampoo lingered in the air. Her drawings, crayon hearts, stick figures of Mom and me, were taped crookedly to the wall. In one, there were two moms. I stared at it for a long time, tracing the childish handwriting. She had drawn me in blue and Claire in green, both holding her hands. And for the first time, I cried. Not out of jealousy. Not out of anger. But from the ache of realizing how complicated love can become when adults make decisions children have to carry. A week later, Daniel called. "Can we meet?" he asked. His tone was cautious, almost fragile. I agreed, partly out of necessity, partly because avoidance had never fixed anything before. We met at a small coffee shop near the park where we used to take Lily as a baby. I remembered the smell of the cinnamon rolls, the sound of the door chime, the way we used to laugh about which one of us would chase her when she toddled too far. Now, we sat in silence. He looked exhausted, like the truth had finally begun to weigh on him too. "I talked to Claire," he said quietly. "She feels terrible. She didn't mean to step over boundaries. None of this was supposed to be hidden?" I finished. He nodded. "Yes. I was a coward, Anna. I thought if I said nothing, it would all balance itself. But it didn't. It just hurt everyone." I studied him for a long moment. "Do you even realize what this did to me? To her?" He looked down. "I do now." I sighed, staring out the window. The park across the street was full of laughter, kids running, parents calling after them. "I'm not trying to erase Claire," I said finally. "But I am her mother, Daniel. I deserve to know what happens in her life. You should have told me." He nodded. "You're right." There was a long pause. "Then let's make it right," I said. "No more secrets. No more half-truths. We make one world for her, together." His eyes met mine. For a fleeting moment, I saw the man I once knew, flawed but sincere. "Okay," he said softly. "I'll do whatever it takes." When I got home, Lily was waiting by the door. "Guess what?" she beamed. "Claire said we can all go to the park together this weekend, you, me, Dad, and Emma." I froze for a moment. The idea of sharing space with them, the other family, made my stomach twist. But then I saw her face. That wide, hopeful smile. "Okay," I said slowly. "That sounds nice." She threw her arms around me. "You're the best, Mom." And just like that, the walls I'd built around my heart softened a little. Saturday came. The park was full of sunlight, children's laughter, and the smell of freshly cut grass. Claire and Daniel were already there with Emma, setting up a picnic blanket. Lily ran ahead, waving. "We're here." I walked slower, the weight of 1,000 emotions pressing on me. Claire smiled when she saw me. "Hi, Anna. Thanks for coming." "Of course," I said politely, sitting down on the edge of the blanket. For a while, we all just existed, not as rivals, not as enemies, but as people tied by the same love for one little girl. Emma offered me a sandwich with sticky fingers, and I couldn't help but laugh. Lily braided her hair beside Claire, talking animatedly about school. Daniel leaned back on his elbows, watching them all quietly. For a brief, fragile moment, everything was peaceful. And I realized something profound: maybe love wasn't a competition. Maybe it was a continuum, messy, flawed, but still capable of holding more than one truth. That night, after Lily fell asleep, I stood by her bed, brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. I whispered softly, "You'll always be mine, no matter how many homes you belong to." She stirred slightly, smiling in her dreams. And I knew, the fight wasn't over. But the anger had transformed into something steadier. Resolve. Strength. Grace. Because sometimes, reclaiming your place doesn't mean pushing others away. It means standing firmly in who you are, unshaken, irreplaceable, and true. For weeks after that picnic, life settled into something that almost looked normal. Almost. But secrets have a way of rippling through people, like cracks under glass. Sooner or later, the truth finds its way out. It started small. At Lily's school, a teacher mentioned her two moms during parent drop-off, smiling politely. Claire laughed softly, a little too quickly. Daniel's jaw tightened. And I just stood there, feeling the air leave my lungs. Afterward, one of the other parents pulled me aside. So, you and your ex-wife are co-parenting with his new partner? That's modern. Her tone was casual, but her eyes searched mine for gossip. I smiled politely. Something like that. She nodded, pretending understanding, but I could already feel the whisper spreading like wildfire. By the end of the week, people were talking. At the grocery store, a woman I barely knew offered a sympathetic smile. On social media, Claire posted a family photo, Daniel, her, Emma, and Lily, all dressed in matching sweaters. The caption read, "Blended families are still families, red heart." It went viral in our small town. The comments were divided. Some called it beautiful. Others said what I couldn't bring myself to say out loud, that it looked like a replacement. I scrolled through the post late that night, sitting on the edge of my bed. Each heart on the photo felt like a tiny knife. I wasn't tagged, of course. But people knew. And then came the messages. Old friends reaching out. Some kind. Some curious. Some cruel. I had no idea, Anna. You're so strong. Wait, is that Lily in the photo? Doesn't that bother you? I'd sue them if I were you. I ignored them all. Because what could I say? That I was trying to protect my daughter's sense of family while protecting my own heart from breaking again? A few days later, Lily came home quiet. At dinner, she barely touched her food. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I asked. She hesitated. "Someone at school said I have fake moms." My chest tightened. "Who said that?" She shrugged. "Just some girl. She said it's weird that my dad has two wives." I took a slow breath, forcing my voice to stay calm. "You listen to me, baby, you don't have fake moms. You just have people who love you. That's what matters, okay?" Her lip trembled. I told her that. But she laughed. I stood, walked around the table, and knelt beside her chair. "You're allowed to have your own kind of family. People don't always understand things that are different, but that doesn't make them wrong." She nodded slowly, tears shining in her eyes. I held her tight until her shoulders stopped shaking. That night, after she fell asleep, I sat alone in the living room, the glow of the streetlights spilling across the floor. And for the first time, I wasn't angry anymore. I was tired. Tired of defending something that was never my fault. So I did something I hadn't planned to do. I opened my laptop. And I started writing. I wrote an open letter. Not to Daniel. Not to Claire. But to the people watching, the ones who whispered, speculated, and judged. It began simply. When a mother is replaced in a photograph, the world often assumes she stopped being part of the story. But motherhood doesn't fade just because someone edits you out. It lives in the nights you stayed awake with fevers, the lunches packed, the tiny hands you held through heartbreak. It lives quietly, even when no one's watching. I told the truth, gently, but completely. About how co-parenting had turned into something blurry. About how I was learning to share love without erasing myself. About how hard it is to protect your child from pain while healing your own. And I ended it with one sentence. I am not the ex-wife. I am the mother. I hesitated before posting it. My finger hovered over share. Then I thought of Lily. And I hit post. By morning, my phone was exploding. Hundreds of messages, from strangers, mothers, fathers, even adult children who'd lived through the same thing. One comment read, "Thank you for saying what so many of us feel but never say." Another, "You didn't lose your place. You're just learning to stand in a wider circle." The post was shared thousands of times. Claire texted me that afternoon. "I read your post. I'm sorry. I should have thought about what that photo would do." I replied simply, "I know. Just, be more careful. For her sake." She responded with a heart emoji. And for the first time it didn't sting. Because something had shifted. The story wasn't being told about me anymore. It was being told by me. Weeks later, at Lily's school play, the auditorium was packed. She spotted us from the stage, Daniel, Claire, Emma, and me, all sitting together in one row. Her eyes lit up, and she waved wildly. In that moment, I realized it didn't matter what anyone else saw. All that mattered was that she saw us, all of us, there for her. When the play ended, she ran to me first. "Did you like it, Mom?" "I loved it," I said, kissing her forehead. Then she ran to Claire and Daniel, hugging them too. People were watching. I could feel their eyes. But for once, I didn't care. Because love, real love, doesn't shrink to fit people's expectations. It grows, even when it hurts. That night, after tucking Lily in, I looked through the old photo albums, pictures of her as a baby, her first steps, her first day of kindergarten. I added one new photo, from the play. All of us smiling awkwardly, but together. And I whispered to myself, this is our truth. Messy. Imperfect. Real. Then I closed the album and turned off the light. Outside, the night was still. And for the first time in a long while, so was I. Time has a way of softening even the sharpest edges. Months passed, and little by little, life found its rhythm again. Not the same rhythm it used to have, slower, quieter, but somehow steadier. Lily was thriving. She laughed more. She drew pictures of our family, all of us together, and hung them proudly on the fridge. I didn't correct her anymore. Because I realized something. She wasn't confused. She was inclusive. Her heart had grown wider than the pain adults carry. I had spent years trying to protect her from heartbreak, but she was teaching me something else, that love can survive even the deepest cracks. One morning, I stood by the kitchen window, watching her chase the school bus, her backpack bouncing against her shoulders. She turned to wave, like she always did. Her smile caught the sunlight, and suddenly, I felt a quiet gratitude rise inside me. For everything. For the heartbreak that taught me boundaries. For the loneliness that taught me strength. For the chaos that forced me to rebuild myself from the ground up. I had thought my story was about betrayal, about what Daniel did, what Claire hid. But standing there, coffee cooling in my hands, I understood it was never about them. It was about me. Who I became when the truth broke me open. Who I chose to be after I could have turned bitter, but didn't. A few weeks later, I met Daniel at a coffee shop to talk about summer custody. He looked older. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe it was life. "I read your new article," he said, staring into his cup. "The one about blended motherhood. It was beautiful." "Thank you," I said quietly. He nodded. "You were right. I didn't protect you. Or her. I just thought, if I built something new fast enough, maybe the old pain would disappear." "It never does," I said. "We just learn how to carry it differently." He looked up then, his eyes soft. "I'm sorry, Anna. Truly. I didn't cry. I didn't make a scene. I just nodded, feeling something heavy, something years old, finally loosen inside me." "I know," I said. "I forgive you." The words surprised me, not because I didn't mean them, but because they felt so light. That night, I called my mother. She had been my quiet anchor through it all, even when I didn't want to talk. When I told her about the meeting, she sighed softly through the phone. Forgiveness isn't for them, sweetheart. It's for your peace. I know, I said. It finally makes sense. She laughed softly. Took you long enough. We both did, laugh, I mean. A real laugh, from the belly. It felt good. Lily spent part of that summer with Daniel and Claire. When she came home, she ran straight into my arms. I missed you so much, Mom, she squealed. I hugged her tight, breathing in the smell of sunscreen and her favorite strawberry shampoo. I missed you too, baby. She handed me a small envelope. Claire helped me make this for you. Inside was a photo, Lily, Emma, Claire, and Daniel at a park. On the back, written in Lily's uneven handwriting, were 5 words. Love doesn't run out, Mom. My eyes burned as I smiled. She was right. It doesn't. That evening, I walked into the backyard with a cup of tea. The sky was pink and gold, that kind of late summer glow that makes everything look softer. I sat there, listening to the crickets, feeling the breeze against my skin. And I thought about all the things I had once wanted to control, the narrative, the judgment, the pain, the people who left. But now, all I wanted was peace. I realized healing doesn't come when everything's fixed. It comes when you stop needing everything to be fixed. I kept writing. The more I wrote, the more I connected with women around the world, mothers, daughters, even stepmothers, all trying to love through complicated circumstances. They wrote back with their own stories. Of divorce, of blended families, of letting go without giving up. And I responded to each one, sometimes with tears, sometimes with a simple line. You are still enough. Because I had learned that truth the hard way, and I wanted others to know it before their hearts broke too. Months later, at Lily's 13th birthday, we all gathered in my backyard. Daniel grilled, Claire brought cake, Emma played with balloons, and Lily, she was in her element, glowing with happiness. At one point, she pulled me aside and whispered, I'm glad everyone's here. It feels like we're all finally okay. I looked around, the laughter, the light, the tangled history between us, and nodded. Yeah, I said softly. We're okay. For the first time, I truly believed it. When everyone left and the yard grew quiet, I stood under the fading light. The grass was still warm under my feet. I whispered a small prayer, not for what I lost, but for what I learned. That motherhood isn't a competition. That love doesn't divide, it multiplies. And that forgiveness isn't weakness, it's freedom. Then I turned off the porch light, went inside, and tucked Lily into bed. As I kissed her forehead, she mumbled sleepily, Love you, Mom. I love you too, sweetheart, I whispered. And for the first time in a long, long while, I didn't feel like half a mother. I felt whole. When I look back now, I realize, the hardest part wasn't losing the marriage. It was losing the version of myself who believed she had to fight for love to prove she deserved it. But life has a quiet way of teaching you that love, real love, doesn't have to be earned or competed for. It just is. Sometimes it changes shape. Sometimes it shares space. But it never truly disappears. I used to think my story ended when Daniel left. But maybe it began the moment I stopped letting someone else's choices define my worth. If you've ever been replaced in a photo, ignored in a conversation, or erased from a story you helped build, I want you to hear this. You still matter. You still belong. You are still part of the love you created. Healing isn't loud. It's quiet, slow, and often invisible. It's learning to smile again when the world expects you to crumble. It's showing up for your child, your peace, and yourself, even when no one claps for you. And maybe that's the lesson I want to leave with you. Sometimes, being a mother, or simply being human, isn't about winning. It's about staying kind in a world that tried to make you bitter. So, tell me. Would you have done what I did? Would you have forgiven, or walked away? Let me know in the comments below. And if my story touched your heart, there's a full library of stories like mine on this channel, each one a reminder that even in heartbreak, there's hope. Because no matter how broken life gets, love always finds a way to grow back.